The ASUS Zephyrus S17 is one of the most powerful gaming laptops I have ever tested. You're going to want to stick around to see what it can do in this review. I've got one of the highest spec options with Intel i9-11900H processor, Nvidia RTX 3080 graphics, 32 gigs of memory, a 3TB RAID 0 array, and a 4K 120Hz screen. But you can check out other configurations as well as updated prices with those links down in the description. The S17 has an all-metal magnesium aluminum body with a dark finish. The interior has some sort of soft touch finish which feels kind of rubbery. There are no sharp corners or edges and build quality feels decent. The laptop alone weighs about 2.8 kilos or 6.2 pounds, then 3.8 kilos or 8.4 pounds total with a fairly large 280 watt power brick. It's on the thinner side when closed considering the specs inside, not too large for a 17-inch machine. Now it's important to note that the S17 is available with two different screen options. I've got the 4K 120Hz one here, but there is also a 1440p 165Hz one, and that 1440p version has Advanced Optimus and G-Sync. So the 4K model that I've got here is stuck with Optimus, but it does at least have adaptive sync. I mention this because I would expect the Advanced Optimus model to perform better than this one in games, as it can bypass the integrated graphics. The 17.3-inch 4K 120Hz screen has a decent color gamut and okay contrast, though I was expecting better from a 4K panel. It gets quite bright though, above 500 nits when at full brightness, but expect different results to what I'm showing here with the 1440p 165Hz screen. The ASUS Armoury Crate software, the control panel for the laptop, gives us the option to enable or disable panel overdrive. With overdrive off, we're looking at an 8.15 millisecond average gray-to-gray response time. There's a link in the description explaining these numbers. If we instead enable overdrive, which is the default, the response time lowers to 5.3 milliseconds, but there's more overshoot now. It's doing well compared to others considering it's a 4K screen. The only other 4K 120Hz laptop I've tested is the MSI GE76, which uses the same panel model, but I guess without an overdrive mode, as that one was slower at 7.6 milliseconds. Mine had no noticeable backlight bleed, but this will vary between laptops and panels. There's a 720p camera above the screen in the middle, no IR for Windows Hello though. This is what the camera and microphone look and sound like. This is what it sounds like while I'm typing on the mechanical keyboard. And this is what it sounds like if I set the fan to full speed. So it's not doing a great job of isolating my voice over the fan noise. The keyboard of the S17 raises up by 5 degrees when you open the lid. This gives it the ability to pull in cool air through this gap to the internals, and also helps improve the typing angle. It took a little getting used to, but personally I think I prefer the subtle angle. It's got optical mechanical switches with 1.9 millimeters of travel, so the key presses are a little louder compared to others, but I definitely liked how they felt more compared to say Alienware's M15R5. It's got perky RGB backlighting and all keys and secondary functions get lit up. There are 3 levels of key brightness using the F2 and F3 shortcuts, while F4 can be used to cycle through a few effects. However, there's more customization available through the Aura Creator software. The power button is separate to the keyboard, so less chance of accidentally pressing it. And it's also a fingerprint scanner, which I found to work quite fast and accurately. There's a wheel for adjusting volume above the keyboard on the left. You can scroll up or down to increase or decrease volume respectively, or press it down to mute and unmute. There's a light next to it which gets brighter with louder volume and turns off when muted. The precision touchpad is huge. It's smooth to the touch, clicks down anywhere, and works very nicely. And despite the larger size, I never had any problems with it getting in the way while typing or playing a game. The left has an air exhaust vent, the power input, HDMI 2.0B output, gigabit Ethernet facing the preferred way so you don't have to lift the laptop when unplugging, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, 2 Type C ports, the left one has Thunderbolt 4, followed by a 3.5mm audio combo jack. The right has 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, a full-sized SD card slot, and there's an air exhaust vent on this side too. Now both of those Type C ports can be used to charge the laptop, and they both also have DisplayPort 1.4 output. However, the Thunderbolt 4 Type C port and the HDMI port connect directly to the Intel integrated graphics. Only the Type C port at the very front bypasses Optimus and connects to the Nvidia graphics directly, and I'll show you how much of a speed boost this gives us in games soon. The front has 2 speakers on either sides near the corners, and there's a little part that sticks out in the middle to help with opening the lid. Unlike others from ASUS, the ROG logo doesn't seem to light up here. The lid just has a subtle dot pattern. Lid flex wasn't too bad considering it's a larger 17-inch and on the thinner side. I'm guessing due to the metal finish. Keyboard flex varies. Generally it was quite sturdy and didn't move at all while typing, but you can see here that there's an area in the middle where there's more flex, and this is because it's held up by pieces of metal on the sides. I doubt this is an issue given ASUS claims to have done pressure testing with 12.5 kilos and noted there weren't any problems. The bottom panel doesn't appear to have a whole heap of holes for airflow, presumably as most air comes in below the keyboard, but we'll check thermals soon. Getting inside requires removing 11 TR5 screws of 2 different sizes, and the one down the front right corner doesn't remove and instead helps with opening, though I found my panel basically popped off without any tools needed. Inside we've got the battery down the front, and it's surrounded by 3 M.2 SSDs. There's a single memory slot towards the center above, and the Wi-Fi 6 card is on the left. Like other laptops from the Zephyrus series, there's either 8 or 16 gigs of memory soldered to the motherboard to keep the machine on the thinner side, so you've just got one SODIMM slot for upgrades. You need a stick installed in order to run in dual channel. There are 6 speakers in total, 2 front-facing tweeters below the screen, 2 on the front left and right sides, and 2 subwoofers underneath on the left and right towards the front. I thought they sounded pretty good. There's some bass, though it was harder to notice at higher volumes as it can get quite loud. The Latencymon results were looking good too. Speaking of sounds, it plays this one by default on boot. You can disable it through Armory Crate or the BIOS though, but apparently a lot more of you than I expected seem to like boot sounds. The S17 has a 4-cell 90Wh battery, however I didn't find the battery life to be that impressive, lasting for less than 5 hours in the YouTube playback test. This is in spite of the S17 automatically lowering the screen's refresh rate down to 60Hz and turning off panel overdrive when you unplug, a feature that generally offers nice battery life improvements. Let's check out thermals next. The Armory Crate software lets us change between different performance profiles, which from lowest to highest are silent, performance, turbo, and manual, and you can also swap between them easily with the F5 shortcut. Silent mode enables whisper mode, which caps FPS in games to 60, but you can disable that manually through NVIDIA GeForce Experience. You can only use up to performance mode when running on battery power. Both turbo and manual modes apply the following overclock to the GPU, while manual mode also lets us adjust power limit sliders for the CPU and adjust fan speed. There are plenty of heat pipes inside, and there's thermal grizzly liquid metal on the CPU. The BIOS also allows us to undervolt the processor by up to -0.08 volts. The idle results down the bottom are on the warmer side, but not really an issue. I've run stress tests with both the CPU and GPU loaded up to represent a worst case, as well as playing an actual game. Overall, the temperatures are seriously impressive here. Worst case, we're getting up to the low 80s. Most laptops I test easily sit between 90 and 95 degrees on the CPU. The cooling pad is only making minor changes, probably because there are only relatively small intake holes underneath. But hey, it doesn't seem to need a cooling pad anyway. The lift-up keyboard design seems to be doing its job. These are the clock speeds from the same tests. Although the CPU speed improves greatly in manual mode, it seems to be at the expense of lower GPU clock speeds, possibly due to dynamic boost. The i9-11900H has an all-core boost speed of 4.4 GHz, so we're actually hitting this even in the worst-case stress test in manual mode, and in the game with the cooling pad in use. Though I'm not really sure what difference the cooling pad is making, given the CPU was 72 degrees without it. Relatively cool. The RTX 3080 graphics was using the most power in turbo mode, above 120 watts, though in a GPU-only workload with the processor idle, dynamic boost could run up to 140 watts, so it just depends on what's going on. The GPU lowers to around 110 to 115 watts, with the CPU still up to 65 watts in manual mode, which is quite impressive given the temperatures. Given the 280 watt power brick and low temps, it would have been good if manual mode was also able to keep the GPU power up like turbo mode. Despite the GPU potentially doing better in turbo mode, with an actual game running, we're seeing the same result as manual mode, though this could vary based on the game tested and might matter more at higher resolutions. Here's how the different modes perform in Cinebench R23, a CPU-only workload with the GPU now idle, so reasonable improvements as we step up to higher performance modes. I should also note the -0.08 volt undervolt applied in BIOS consistently got a 13,000 score, so it didn't seem useful compared to just stock manual mode. It's doing quite well when compared to others. The single core score is actually the highest I've ever recorded as far as actual mobile processors go. Technically the i9-11900K up the top is slightly ahead, but that's a desktop processor. Otherwise multi-core is only being beaten by a couple of Ryzen 9 5900HX machines. The multi-core score drops quite a bit when running on battery power though, which is in contrast to Ryzen-based laptops from ASUS, which are taking the top 5 places here. However, the single core score from the Intel 11900H which hardly changes and is above all others. The keyboard area is in the low 30s when idling, same as most others, though there's a warmer point above the touchpad. The wrist rest area is warmer compared to the keyboard with the stress tests, but the elevated keyboard still felt fine. Performance mode is similar, still a warmer wrist rest, but the keyboard is fine. Turbo mode continues this, a little warmer still, and we can see hot air appears to be going onto the screen in the middle. There's not too much difference in manual mode with the fan on maximum. The left and right sides of the keyboard are quite cool. Let's have a listen to the fans. The fans seem to turn on and off when idling, which could be annoying. It's relatively quiet in silent mode even with the stress test going. Then it gets progressively louder, stepping up to higher modes. Compared to other laptops, I don't think manual mode with maxed out fans was too loud. The smaller G14 I recently tested was louder at 59 decibels for instance. In manual mode with the fans at max speed, after a few minutes of the laptop just sitting there doing pretty much nothing, I did find that the fans would slow down, which I guess is probably preferable from the perspective of if you're not doing anything, you probably don't want the laptop making a lot of noise. But for me, I wanted to stay running at max if that's what I've set, so I figured it was worth mentioning. Now let's find out how well this configuration of the S17 compares against other laptops in games. Again, keep in mind that I've got the 4K 120Hz model, which means we're stuck with Optimus. I would expect the 1440p version with advanced Optimus to perform better than this. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode with ultra settings, and I've got the S17 highlighted in red. It's actually doing quite well here when you consider that the 4 results below it and 3 above it all have a mux switch and aren't limited by Optimus. And it's able to beat other RTX 3080 laptops from ASUS like the Scar 15 or Zephyrus G15, which are more than 20 FPS behind. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the game's benchmark. Again, the S17 was doing well here, though it could be beaten by 3070 laptops that let us disable Optimus, such as MSI's GP76 or the XMG Neo 15 just above it. Far Cry 5 was also tested with the game's benchmark at max settings, and as a game that seems to favor Intel, it's not too surprising to see the 11th gen 11900H coming out quite high again here. It's only being beaten by other systems with i9 processors. That again let us disable Optimus. As one of those Type-C ports connects directly to the RTX 3080 graphics, connecting an external screen will mean that we're bypassing Optimus and the iGPU. So this should represent the performance that we would see from the 1440p advanced Optimus model. I've got both the results with the laptop only and with the external screen connected highlighted here. We're looking at more than a 20% increase to average FPS in this game, an impressive result. The S17 is beating the thicker GE76 by a couple of frames. It's only behind the far more expensive desktop replacement with 11900K. Here are the results from 3D Mark for those that find them useful. Now for some creator tests. Adobe Premiere was tested with the Puget Systems benchmark. The S17 was able to offer me the best score in this test out of any laptop that I've ever tested so far by a fair margin. It's scoring 18% higher than the much thicker 11900K desktop processor in the Clevo machine just below it. The S17 was doing quite well in Adobe Photoshop, the second best result, though it wasn't able to beat the 11900K machine this time around. DaVinci Resolve is more GPU heavy, and the S17 is again back at the top here, despite the Clevo X17 just below technically having a higher GPU power limit. So some of the difference might be due to the CPUs, Rocket Lake versus Tiger Lake. I've also tested SpecViewPerf, which tests out various professional 3D workloads. I've got 3 1TB PCIe Gen 4 M.2 SSDs in RAID 0, so the performance is nothing short of insane. It's worth noting that Intel's 11th gen Tiger Lake platform has 20 lanes of PCIe 4, so 3 M.2 slots with 4 lanes each means the RTX 3080 gets 8 lanes. Though as we saw earlier, that doesn't really appear to be holding it back once Optimus is removed. The UHS-2 SD card slot was performing well too, maxing out my V90 card. The card reader is positioned awkwardly. You can't really see it without trying to look under the edge, but the card clicks in and doesn't stick out. The BIOS has the standard options that most other ASUS laptops have. However, there's a section in here for undervolting the processor, which can go as low as the -0.08 volts that I mentioned earlier, though I didn't really find this to help in Cinebench. I booted an Ubuntu 21 Live CD to test Linux support. Out of the box, the touchpad, keyboard, speakers, Ethernet, camera, and volume wheel all worked, but Wi-Fi wasn't recognized and the keyboard shortcuts for screen brightness and keyboard brightness didn't work. Unfortunately, I can't really discuss pricing right right now because I can't find it for sale anywhere. I'll stick some links down in the description that should have updated prices once it's available. But for now, I've honestly got no idea, but for a top-end spec model like this, I wouldn't expect it to be cheap. Putting price aside for the moment, I think the ASUS Zephyrus S17 is a very impressive gaming laptop. Thermals in particular were next level, barely getting to 80 degrees Celsius while offering high levels of performance. It certainly appears that unique lift-up keyboard design is helping. I liked typing with the mechanical keyboard more so compared to the recent Alienware M15R5, but that is personal preference, but the 5-degree incline did grow on me. This is definitely a better solution compared to the last gen model where they had the keyboard down the front and the touchpad crammed over to the right side. Not only is it a traditional layout, but the touchpad is big, works well, and we get a full-size keyboard with no compromises. The screen in my model is decent, but I'd probably lean towards the 1440p option with Advanced Optimus and G-Sync simply because that will offer a speed boost in games. But if you'll be using an external monitor anyway, then as we've seen, you can still get a speed boost with the 4K model. The battery life was lower than I would like to see, but otherwise there's not really too much for me to complain about. Except I guess probably the price. Again, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming it's not going to be cheap. But that's always going to be expected with a higher end machine like this with all the bells and whistles. In both CPU performance and gaming, the S17 shows us that Intel 11th gen can be competitive with AMD's Ryzen 5000. But I'll compare Intel and AMD fairly in a future video, so make sure you're subscribed for that upcoming comparison as well as for future laptop reviews like this one. Come and join me in Discord and get behind the scenes videos by supporting the channel on Patreon, and come and check out some of my other videos over here. I'll see you over in one of those next.